You know that feeling when you send a text you immediately regret? The kind that makes your stomach drop right down to your toes? Well, imagine sending that text to the wrong number. And not just any wrong number. The personal, private, and absolutely off limits number of a man so powerful, so reclusive, that the world only knows him by his reputation. A man who could buy a small country before his morning coffee. This isn't just a story about a mistake. This is the story of how a single text message sent my safe, boring little life into a tailspin of obsession, luxury, and a love so terrifying it felt like falling from a skyscraper. This is what happens when you accidentally invite a king into your cardboard castle and he decides to stay. So let me set the scene for you. My name is Gia. I was 24, living in a shoebox apartment in Seoul that cost me most of my paycheck, working a soul-crushing job as a junior graphic designer, and my love life was, let's call it a certified disaster zone. My then boyfriend, Minho, was the human equivalent of lukewarm water. Not terrible, but not exactly exciting either. He was safe, predictable. And on this particular Tuesday night, he was also ignoring my texts, which, as it turns out, was the catalyst for the single most insane series of events of my entire life. Because boredom and frustration are a dangerous mix, especially when you have a phone in your hand and a complete lack of common sense. The rain was tapping a lazy rhythm against my window, matching the dull thud of my heart. Another evening spent staring at my phone, waiting for a double blue tick that refused to appear. Minho had promised we'd finally try that new Italian place downtown, the one with the fairy lights. He'd texted me 3 hours ago. Swamped at work. Rain check? And then radio silence. I'd called twice. Nothing. I was curled up on my second-hand couch, wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days, feeling the special kind of self-pity that only comes from being stood up and knowing you're not even angry enough to break up with him. You're just disappointed. The kind of disappointment that sinks into your bones. I was just another girl in a city of 10 million, utterly forgettable. So, I did what any self-respecting, mildly dramatic 20-something would do. I decided to write a text I would never, ever send. A cathartic release of all my pent-up frustration. My thumbs flew across the screen, my anger giving them wings. You know what, Minho? I'm so tired of this. Tired of being your last priority. Tired of your empty promises. You say you'll call, you don't. You say we'll go out, we cancel. I feel so alone in this relationship, and I'm starting to think you prefer it that way. Maybe you're just a coward who can't handle a real connection. Maybe I'm the fool for waiting for you to change. It was brutal. It was honest. And it was meant for my eyes only, a digital scream into the void. But then, my phone, the traitor, buzzed. A new message from an unknown number had popped up. In my distracted, teary state, I must have opened it, and my thumb, slick with nervous sweat, must have hit paste and send on my rant. I didn't even realize it until my phone buzzed again just 30 seconds later. A reply from the unknown number. It was one line, just 5 words. But they were 5 words that froze the blood in my veins. Who is this, and how did you get this number? The tone was ice cold, authoritative. This wasn't a confused, LOL, wrong number. This was a demand. My heart did a clumsy somersault. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. I fumbled, my fingers trembling as I typed out a reply. I'm so sorry, wrong number. This was meant for my boyfriend. I held my breath, hoping that would be the end of it. The little typing bubbles appeared and disappeared, and then appeared again. This person was deliberating. My stomach churned. Finally, a reply came. Your boyfriend is a fortunate man. To have someone who cares enough to be so passionate. The sarcasm was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I felt my cheeks burn with a fresh wave of humiliation. He'd read it. A complete stranger had read my raw, emotional, deeply private rant.
I was about to type another apology to just bury this entire embarrassing incident when a second message came through. You mentioned feeling alone, an interesting sentiment for someone in a relationship. Okay, now this was getting weird and intrusive. Who was this guy? I copied the number, my hand shaking so badly I had to try 3 times, and pasted it into the search bar. Maybe it was a colleague? A client? The screen loaded for a second, and then a profile popped up. No picture, just a name. Kai Jin-ho. The name meant nothing to me. I clicked on it, and my phone automatically opened a business networking app. His profile was almost blank, just the name Kai Jin-ho and a single, terrifyingly impressive tagline: Chief Executive Officer, Jin-ho Global. My breath hitched. Jin-ho Global. The Jin-ho Global. The tech and investment conglomerate so massive it was a household name. The company that was literally building the city's new smart infrastructure. I'd seen the CEO on the cover of Forbes once, but it was a grainy, distant shot of a man in a tailored black coat, his face half turned from the camera. He was a ghost, a myth. And I had just sent him a text calling my boyfriend a coward. I felt the world tilt. This wasn't just a wrong number. This was a catastrophic, universe-altering mistake. I dropped my phone like it was on fire. What had I done? For a full minute, I just sat there, staring at the wall, my mind racing. He was a billionaire. He could sue me. He could have me fired. I didn't even know what he could do. People like him operated on a level of power I couldn't even comprehend. My phone buzzed again, vibrating against the wooden floor. I flinched. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I crawled off the couch and picked it up, my heart pounding a frantic drum solo against my ribs. It was from him. Of course it was from him. Since your current companion seems to lack appreciation, perhaps you would allow me to remedy your loneliness. A car will be at your address in 20 minutes. My blood ran cold. My address? How did he get my address? And then it hit me. My profile on the business app, it was linked to my portfolio website, which had my contact information, which included my address for freelance deliveries. I felt a wave of pure, unadulterated terror. He had found me. In less than 5 minutes, he had found where I lived. No, thank you, that's really not necessary, I typed back, my fingers stumbling over each other. It's a very kind offer, but I'm fine, really. I'm just gonna stay in. The reply was instantaneous. It was not an offer, Gia. It is a solution. 18 minutes. He used my name. He knew my name. This was real. This was happening. I ran to my window and peered through the blinds down at the quiet, rain-slick street. It was empty. For now. But in 18 minutes, a car sent by one of the most powerful men in the country would be idling outside my dilapidated apartment building. What was in the car? Where would it take me? Was this a kidnapping? A date? My brain couldn't process. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies. Not to me. Not to Gia, the girl whose biggest thrill of the week was finding a buy one get one free deal on kimchi. I was trapped. What was I supposed to do? Call the police? And say what? Hello, officer, a billionaire is sending a car for me because I sent him a sad text and I'm scared? They'd laugh me off the phone. Call Min-ho? He'd probably tell me I was being dramatic. I was completely, utterly alone. The only person who knew what was happening was the man who had orchestrated it. So I did the only thing I could think of. I got dressed. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely button my jeans. I threw on a simple black sweater, the nicest one I owned, as if that would somehow armor me against whatever was coming. I kept checking the window. 10 minutes, 5, 2, and then, right on time, a car glided silently down my street. But it wasn't just a car. It was a long, sleek, black limousine, so polished it seemed to absorb the dim streetlights. It looked like a predator. It stopped directly opposite my building, its windows so dark I couldn't see inside. It just sat there, waiting. My phone buzzed. The car is here. This was it, the point of no return. I took a deep, shuddering breath, grabbed my purse, and walked out of my apartment, my legs feeling like they were made of jelly. Each step down the stairs echoed in the silent hallway. I pushed the heavy front door open and stepped out into the cool, damp night air. The rain had softened to a mist. The limousine's back door swung open silently from the inside. I couldn't see who was in there. It was just a dark, open maw. I hesitated on the sidewalk, the weight of 1,000 bad decisions pressing down on me. This was how people disappeared. This was how headlines began. But something, some insane mix of curiosity and a desperate, buried desire for my life to mean something, pushed me forward. I climbed inside. The door closed behind me with a soft, expensive thud. The interior was all cream leather and dark wood. It smelled of leather and sandalwood. And sitting across from me, illuminated by a single soft reading light, was a man. He wasn't what I expected. He wasn't a grizzled old tycoon. He was young, maybe in his early 30s. His hair was dark and perfectly styled, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He was wearing a simple but obviously impossibly expensive black turtleneck and dark trousers. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at a tablet in his hands, his expression unreadable. He was beautiful, in a cold, terrifying, sculpted from marble kind of way. We sat in silence for a full minute as the car pulled away from the curb. I was too scared to speak. He finally looked up and his eyes met mine. They were a dark, piercing brown, and they held no warmth. They were analytical, assessing, like he was looking at a spreadsheet and trying to find an error. He said, "Gia." His voice was a low baritone, smooth and controlled. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a confirmation. "Yes," I stammered. "Mr. Jin-ho, I'm so sorry about the text. It was a stupid mistake." He tilted his head slightly. Was it? I found it illuminating, a raw display of human emotion, rare in my world. He set the tablet down. "You stated you were alone. I am rectifying the situation." "By kidnapping me?" The words were out before I could stop them. I clapped a hand over my mouth. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. He said, "By introducing you to a world where your passion would not be so carelessly disregarded. We are going to dinner." "Dinner? But I gestured helplessly at my simple sweater and jeans. He said, "You look authentic." His gaze swept me over, and I felt it like a physical touch. "It is a refreshing change. Now, relax. The restaurant is expecting us." And that was it. The conversation was over. He picked up his tablet again, effectively dismissing me. I spent the rest of the ride staring out the tinted window, watching my familiar, normal neighborhood fade away, replaced by the glittering, high-speed highway that led to the Gangnam district, a world of wealth I had only ever seen in dramas. My mind was reeling. This was insane. This was a dream. A very, very frightening dream. The car eventually pulled up to a discreet, unmarked building. A man in a suit opened our door, bowing deeply. "Mr. Jin-ho." Kai got out and, without looking back, offered me his hand. I took it. His grip was firm, his skin cool. He led me inside, through a silent, minimalist hallway, and into a private dining room. It was all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River and the city skyline, twinkling like a bed of jewels. There was one table, set for two, with a single orchid as a centerpiece. The meal was a blur of tiny, exquisite dishes I didn't recognize, served by silent, efficient staff. Kai barely spoke, only making occasional cryptic comments. "The sea urchin is from Jeju. It is best this time of year." Or, "You have a designer's eye. You noticed the asymmetry in the plating." He was observing me, studying my every reaction. It was unnerving.
Finally, as a dessert of some delicate pear sorbet was placed before us, I found my voice. Why am I here, Mr. Jin-ho? Really? He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Call me Kai, and you are here because you intrigued me. In my world, people say what they think I want to hear. They are polished, perfect, and utterly hollow. You blasted your unfiltered pain into my private space. It was like a splash of cold water. It was real. So I'm what? Your entertainment? A fascinating new pet? His eyes glinted with something dangerous. Perhaps. Or perhaps you are a reminder of something I have forgotten. Emotion, vulnerability, the messy, inconvenient beauty of caring for someone who does not deserve it. His words cut deep because they were true. I had cared for Minho and he had not deserved it. I looked down at my hands. It doesn't feel beautiful. It just hurts. Pain is a catalyst, Jia. It forces change. You were in pain, so you sent a text. That text brought you here, to me. The question is, what will you do with this new opportunity? The way he said to me sent a shiver down my spine. It was possessive, certain. Before I could respond, my phone vibrated loudly on the table. The screen lit up with Min Ho's name. I stared at it, my heart clenching. Kai's eyes flicked to the phone, then back to me. Aren't you going to answer it? Your boyfriend? I looked from Minho's name to Kai's intense, unreadable face. One was my safe, boring, painful past. The other was a terrifying, unknown, exhilarating future. I took a deep breath, reached out, and declined the call. Then I picked up the phone and with a trembling finger, turned it off completely. I looked back at Kai. He didn't smile, but something in his eyes shifted, a flicker of approval, a victory. Good, was all he said. The car ride back to my apartment was silent, but the air was thick with unspoken words. He walked me to my door, a gesture that felt both archaic and intensely protective. As I fumbled for my keys, he stood close behind me, not touching me, but I could feel the heat radiating from his body. It was an invisible brand, a promise of something to come. Thank you for dinner, I whispered, not turning around. I will see you tomorrow, Jiha. His voice a low murmur by my ear. It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a fact, as inevitable as the sunrise. I finally got the door open and slipped inside, leaning against it, my heart hammering. I heard his footsteps retreating down the hall. I was safe. I was in my own home. So why did I feel like I had just jumped out of an airplane without a parachute, and part of me was thrilled about the fall? The next morning, I woke up feeling like it had all been a dream, a very intense, very expensive dream. I rolled over and turned my phone back on. It exploded with notifications. Dozens of missed calls and texts from Minho, escalating from confused to angry to pleading. And then a single text from an unknown number, Kai's number. Good morning. Your presence is required at the Jin-ho Tower today. A car will collect you at 9 a.m. Be ready. I sat bolt upright. It was 8:15. My heart started its frantic pounding again. Required? Who says that? I scrambled out of bed, my mind racing. I couldn't just not go. Something told me that defying Kai Jin-ho was a very, very bad idea. I threw on the most professional outfit I owned, a simple black dress, and was barely ready when my phone buzzed at 9 a.m. on the dot. The car is outside. This time it was a sleek black sedan. The driver held the door for me without a word. We didn't go to a restaurant. We went to the heart of his empire, the stunning, shimmering glass needle of Jin-ho Tower. I was whisked through a private entrance, up a silent elevator and into an office that was bigger than my entire apartment building. The view was breathtaking, and there he was, standing by the window, silhouetted against the morning sun. He turned as I entered. He was wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit today. He looked even more powerful, more untouchable. "You're late," he said, though there was no heat in it. He glanced at his watch. "By 2 minutes." "Traffic?" I mumbled, feeling completely out of place. He walked towards me, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. "The dress is acceptable, but we will get you something better." He stopped in front of me. "You have a job." I, I have a job," I said, confused. "At Design Co." "Not anymore," he said dismissively. "I called them this morning. Your services are no longer required. You now work for me." My jaw dropped. You what? You can't do that. You got me fired?" "I liberated you," he corrected, his tone firm. "You were wasting your talent there. You will be a junior art director on my new flagship project, Elysian. Your salary has been tripled. Your contract is on the desk." I was speechless. This was insane. This was Ba Dao Chong-san in the flesh. The overbearing CEO trope I loved in webtoons was currently ruining my life in the most luxurious way possible. "You can't just orchestrate my entire life." "I can," he said, his eyes locking with mine with an intensity that was both thrilling and frightening. "He sees a fire in you that your old job was slowly extinguishing. That fire belongs in the world, and I intend to make sure it burns brighter than ever. So your talent? I'm investing in it. Your passion? I will challenge it. Your time? I will make every second count. Do you have a problem with that?" I should have been furious. I should have told him to go to hell. I should have walked out. But looking into his intense, possessive gaze, feeling the sheer magnetic pull of his confidence, I felt something else entirely. A thrill. A dark, dangerous, intoxicating thrill. He saw something in me. He wanted me. Not the quiet, accommodating Jia, but the passionate, fiery one who wrote angry texts. He was claiming me, and a part of me I didn't know existed wanted to be claimed. I walked over to the desk. There was a single sheet of paper, the contract. The salary was indeed triple what I made. The benefits were insane. I picked up the pen. My hand was shaking. I looked back at him. He was watching me, a predator watching its prey take the bait. I signed my name. That was the true beginning, the start of my new life inside the gilded cage Kai had built for me. My days were a whirlwind. I was given my own stunning office with a view. I was thrown into the deep end of a high-stakes project, working with a team that was both terrified and in awe of me, knowing I was the boss's, what, pet project? Mistress? No one knew, not even me. Kai was a constant, overwhelming presence. He was demanding, brilliant, and relentlessly critical of my work, pushing me harder than anyone ever had. But in the quiet moments, there were glimpses of something else. He'd have lunch sent to my office when he noticed I'd skipped a meal. He'd remember an offhand comment I'd made about liking a certain artist, and the next day, a book of their work would be on my desk. It was a confusing, maddening mix of cold authority and unnerving attentiveness. And then there was Minho. He showed up at my apartment that evening, flowers in hand, full of apologies. "Jia, I'm so sorry. I was stupid. Please, let's talk." I was about to open the door, to fall back into my safe, familiar pattern, when a black sedan pulled up across the street. Not the limo, the sedan. It just sat there. The driver wasn't looking at us, but I knew. I knew Kai was watching, or someone was watching for him. The message was clear. I had made a choice. I looked at Minho, at his safe, pleading face, and then I looked at the sedan, a symbol of the terrifying, thrilling unknown. "I'm sorry, Minho," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "It's over." I closed the door, my heart pounding. I was choosing the storm. I was choosing Kai.
Days turned into weeks. The Elysian project was a massive success, largely due to the creative direction I had fought for. The night of the launch party, I was in a beautiful, deep blue gown Kai's personal stylist had chosen for me, feeling like Cinderella at the ball. He found me on the balcony, overlooking the city, the cool night air a welcome relief from the heat of the party. "You were exceptional," he said, handing me a glass of champagne. His fingers brushed against mine, and a jolt of electricity shot up my arm. We were exceptional," I corrected, feeling bold from the champagne and the success. He gave me that rare, almost smile. "We were." He looked out at the city, his expression turning serious. "This world, it can be a lonely place, even at the top, especially at the top." He turned his gaze back to me. "You have no idea how quiet it was before you blasted your way into it." My breath caught. This was the most vulnerable he had ever been. "Kai," I whispered. He leaned in closer, his face just inches from mine. I could smell his cologne, feel the warmth of his breath. "I am not a good man, Gia. I am possessive. I am controlling. I see what I want, and I take it. And I want you. All of you." It was a confession, a warning, a promise. Before I could respond, his lips were on mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was claiming. It was desperate. It was a torrent of all the unspoken tension, the obsession, the raw, wild energy that had been crackling between us since the moment I got into that limousine. His arms snaked around my waist, pulling me flush against his body, erasing any space between us. I could feel the hard planes of his chest, the steady, powerful beat of his heart. I kissed him back with equal fervor, my hands tangling in the soft hair at the nape of his neck, the champagne flute, forgotten, shattering on the stone floor. The sound was lost in the roar of blood in my ears. In that moment, there was no one else in the world, just him and me, and the city lights spinning around us. That night, I didn't go back to my shoebox apartment. I went home with him, to his penthouse in the clouds. It was as minimalist and cold as his office, but his touch was anything but. The moment the elevator doors closed behind us, he had me pinned against the wall, his mouth finding mine again with a hunger that stole my breath. His hands were everywhere, sliding down my back, over the silk of my dress, pulling me closer as if he could fuse us into one single being. "Tell me you want this," he growled against my lips, his voice ragged. "Tell me you want me." "I want you," I gasped, the words torn from me, true and undeniable. "I want this." That was all the permission he needed. He led me to his bedroom, a vast space of dark wood and white linen with a window that looked out onto the endless city. He set me down gently in the center of the room, his eyes never leaving mine. The look in them was one of such raw, reverent hunger that it made my knees weak. He reached for me, his fingers slowly, deliberately finding the hidden zipper of my blue gown. The sound of it sliding down was deafening in the silence. The dress pooled at my feet, a puddle of sapphire silk. The cool night air hit my skin, but I didn't feel cold. I felt alive, electric under his searing gaze. He just looked at me, his chest rising and falling rapidly, as if he were memorizing this moment. "You are so much more beautiful than I ever imagined," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are everything." He closed the distance again, but this time his touch was different, slower, more deliberate. His lips found the sensitive spot just below my ear, then trailed a path of fire down my neck to my collarbone. Each kiss was a brand, a silent promise. His hands followed, tracing the lines of my body with a possessive reverence that made me tremble. It was an exploration, a claiming, and a worship all at once. I reached for the buttons of his shirt, my fingers fumbling in my urgency. I needed to feel him, skin to skin. When the last button gave way, I pushed the fabric from his shoulders, revealing the sculpted planes of his chest. My breath hitched. He was perfect. He guided us down onto the impossibly soft sheets, his body a warm, protective weight over me. The world outside, with all its rules and fears, ceased to exist. There was only this, only him. The feel of his skin against mine, the sound of his ragged breaths mingling with my own, the whispered words, my name, his promises, pleas and praises, in Korean, that wove a cocoon of intimacy around us. He was meticulous and devastating in his attention, learning what made me gasp, what made me arch against him, what made me whisper his name like a secret. It was a dance of give and take, a building storm of sensation that left me breathless and clinging to him. The line between pleasure and pain, between surrender and conquest, blurred into nothing. And when the final barrier between us fell away and he moved to join us as one, the world didn't just fall away, it exploded into a million shimmering pieces. It wasn't just a physical act, it was a soul-deep collision, a feeling of coming home to a place I never knew existed. My quiet cry was swallowed by his kiss, and in that perfect, shattering moment, I knew. I was irrevocably, completely, and terrifyingly his, and he was, in every way that mattered, mine. I woke up hours before dawn, tangled in him. The city lights were still glittering below, but in the soft dark of the room, they felt like they were just for us. His arm was a heavy, possessive weight across my waist, his breathing even and deep against my back. I'd never felt so safe, so utterly consumed, and so completely at peace. This was what it meant to be truly, devastatingly loved. This was the storm I had chosen, and I would choose it 1,000 times over. The next few weeks were a fairy tale, a dark, intense, overwhelming fairy tale. He was relentlessly attentive. He'd send me texts throughout the day, thinking of you, what are you wearing? The meeting is dragging on, I'd rather be with you. It was flattering. It was all-consuming. He started showing up at my office unannounced, just to watch me work. He'd have the driver follow me when I went out with my friends. For my safety, he said. A little voice in my head whispered that this wasn't protection, it was surveillance. But I silenced it, telling myself that this overwhelming attention was just the price of a love this intense. I mistook his obsession for devotion. But the cracks began to show. I mentioned an old male college friend I was having coffee with, and Kai had him transferred to a different department the next day. I wore a dress he deemed too revealing to a company event, and he made me go home and change. He was slowly, systematically cutting me off from my old life and molding me into his perfect, secluded companion. The passion was still there, burning hotter than ever, but it was now edged with a cold fear. The cage, I realized, was real, and the door was locked. The climax came on a rainy night, much like the one where it all began. I was working late, and my phone died. By the time I got it charged and got home, it was past 10 p.m. I walked into my apartment, the one he still paid for but barely let me stay in, to find him sitting on my couch in the dark. The air was so cold, it felt like winter. Where were you? His voice was quiet, deadly. I was at the office, you know that, I said, my heart starting to race. You called my office line, no answer. I must have been in the supply room, getting more. I trailed off. His expression was one of pure, icy fury. Do not lie to me, Jia. He stood up slowly, like a panther uncoiling. I have rearranged my world for you. I have given you opportunities others dream of, and your loyalty feels like it's given to anyone who asks. He didn't touch me, but he slammed his hand flat against the wall beside my head, making me flinch. The violence of the gesture was a shock, and the fear was instant and paralyzing. He was a caged animal, his chest heaving. I saw the fury in his eyes, but beneath it, a terrifying hurt. You lied to me, he whispered. the words laced with a pain that was worse than any shout. He pulled his hand back from the wall, staring at it as if it belonged to a stranger, then at my terrified face. The rage in his eyes shattered, replaced by something else. Horror. Shock. He stumbled back, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up. He looked broken. He stammered, his voice raw. I swore I would never become. He couldn't finish the sentence. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a pain so deep it was terrifying. My father? He was like this with my mother. He owned her. He broke her. And I? And I am becoming him. The confession hung in the air between us, raw and devastating. This wasn't just about me. This was his demon, the cycle of abuse and possession he was terrified of repeating. He turned and walked out of my apartment without another word, leaving me standing there shaking, my arm throbbing, my heart shattered into a million pieces. He disappeared for 3 days. No texts, no calls. The silence was worse than his anger. I was a wreck. I loved him. I was terrified of him. I missed him. I hated him. The emotional whiplash was destroying me. On the 4th day, a package arrived. It was a small black box. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside, on a bed of black velvet, was a single key. Not a car key, a house key. And a note, written in his sharp, precise handwriting. Gia, the lock has been changed. The choice to walk through the door is and has always been yours. The power was always yours. I was just too blind, too poisoned by my own nature to see it. I am getting help. I cannot be the man you deserve if I am the monster I fear. The cage is open. You are free. If you choose to walk away, you will want for nothing. A new life, anywhere in the world, is yours. If you choose to stay, I will spend the rest of my life earning your trust, not as your owner, but as the man who is hopelessly, desperately in love with you. Yours, in hope. Kai. I held the key in my hand. It felt heavy, not with the weight of metal, but with the weight of a future. It was no longer a symbol of a cage, but of a choice. My choice. He was finally giving me the power back. The power I had given away so willingly, seduced by the glitter and the intensity. The power he had taken so completely, convinced it was his right. It was all here, cold and solid in my palm. I cried. I cried for the scared, lonely girl who sent a wrong text, desperate for a connection. I cried for the brilliant, broken man trapped by his own demons, terrified of becoming the monster he despised. I cried for the painful, beautiful, epic mess we had created together. The luxury, the passion, the fear, it all swirled together into one overwhelming storm of emotion that finally broke over me, leaving me shaking and raw on my living room floor. For 3 days, I was paralyzed. The key sat on my coffee table, a silent judge. I didn't hear from him. The silence was different this time. It wasn't the cold, punishing silence of before. It was a waiting silence, a respectful one. He was keeping his word. The ball was in my court. My life was my own again. I could go back to my old life. I could find a new job, a new apartment. I could even call Min-ho. The thought was like a sip of lukewarm water. Safe, predictable, utterly devoid of the electric, terrifying current that had been humming through my veins for months. The thought of a life without Kai felt gray, washed out, like watching the world through a dirty window. Even with the fear, even with the pain, he had made me feel more alive than I ever had in my entire safe, boring existence. He saw the fire in me, and instead of letting it die, he had poured gasoline on it.
On the fourth morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. I knew what I had to do. It wasn't a decision made from logic. It was a pull, a deep gravitational force I could no longer resist. I took the key. I got dressed in a simple, comfortable dress, one I had chosen for myself. I didn't call for a car. I didn't look to see if I was being followed. I walked out of my apartment and onto the sunny street, a free woman making a conscious choice. I hailed a taxi, a normal, yellow, everyday taxi. The driver was listening to the radio, humming off-key. The normalcy of it was jarring. I gave the driver his address. The driver whistled, impressed. Fancy place. I just smiled. The ride felt both endless and over in a heartbeat. I walked up to the imposing, sleek door of his penthouse, my heart pounding a rhythm of hope and fierce determination. I was not the same scared girl who had stood on this threshold before. I was a woman who had seen the darkness and was choosing to walk back in, not as a prisoner, but as an equal, as a partner. I took the key. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a smooth, solid, final click. The sound echoed in the quiet hallway, a sound more profound than any declaration of love. I pushed the door open. The vast, minimalist space was flooded with morning light. And he was there, standing in the middle of the living room, waiting. He looked different. Exhausted, yes. The shadows under his eyes were pronounced. He was wearing simple jeans and a white t-shirt. No armor of suits or tailored coats. He was just a man. Not a billionaire CEO, not a terrifying mafia boss of the corporate world. Not a monster. Just a man. A man who loved me and had been terrified of destroying me. He didn't say a word. He didn't move. He just looked at me, his dark eyes holding a universe of fear, hope, regret, and love. They were asking the question his lips couldn't form. Is it you? Have you come back to me? Can you ever forgive the unforgivable? I closed the door behind me. The click of it closing was just as loud as the click of it opening. I took a step forward on the cool marble floor, then another. My steps were sure, my gaze never leaving his, until I was standing right in front of him, close enough to feel the heat from his body, to see the faint tremble in his hands that he was trying to hide. I reached up and cupped his face in my hands. His skin was warm. He closed his eyes at my touch, a shudder running through his entire frame. He leaned into my palms, as if my hands were the only thing holding him up. A single tear escaped from the corner of his eye and traced a path down his cheek. I wiped it away with my thumb. My voice was soft, but it rang with a strength I had found in my time away, a strength he had inadvertently given me by letting me go. I choose you, I whispered, the words a vow, but I choose us as equals. No more cages, no more drivers following me, no more transferring my friends, no more controlling what I wear. You get me, Kai. All of me. The passion, the fire, the loyalty, and the freedom. They are a package deal. You don't get one without the others. He opened his eyes, and the raw, unguarded love in them took my breath away. It was all there, finally, with no walls, no games, no possessiveness, just love. He brought his own hands up, covering mine where they held his face. His voice was thick with emotion, rough with a vulnerability I had never heard before. No more cages, he vowed, his words a sacred promise. Just you and me. However you'll have me, for as long as you'll have me. He didn't kiss me immediately. He just held my hands and looked at me, as if he were memorizing this moment, this version of me who had chosen him not out of fear or obsession, but out of love and clear-eyed acceptance.
Then, slowly, he leaned forward and pressed his forehead against mine, our breath mingling, a silent communion. "I love you, Jia," he whispered, the words simple, direct, and more powerful than any command he had ever given me. "I love you too, Kai," I whispered back. And then he kissed me. It was different from any kiss we had ever shared. It wasn't a claiming. It wasn't desperate. It was a homecoming. It was soft and deep and full of a promise for a future we would build together, on a foundation of mutual respect instead of control. It tasted of tears, of forgiveness, and of a hope so bright it outshined the soul skyline glittering behind us. As he wrapped his arms around me, holding me like I was the most precious, cherished thing in his world, not a possession, but a partner, I knew our story was far from over. There would be challenges. His demons weren't gone in a day. My trust would have to be earned, brick by brick. But we were starting over. The wrong number had led us to this messy, painful, dramatic, and epic love. And now, with the right choices, we were finally writing the first chapter of our forever. If you want to get lost in more stories about love that feels like a dangerous, beautiful fall, make sure you subscribe and like this video.